What is WASPI?
WASPI stands for Women Against State Pension Inequality. Basically, it started about 2 years ago. A group of 5 women formed the group, put it all on Facebook, used social media to advertise, and we've actually now got over 65,000 followers on Facebook. We have raised this issue because people who were born in the 1950s, specifically women, have had their pensions delayed once at least. Lots of us have had it delayed twice. If you look at the way the pension scheme is working at the moment, people who were born in 1953, there are 4 years between the start of 1953 to the end of 1953 when people qualify for their state pensions. That is horrendous. 4 years.
You've paid money in, your husbands have paid money in, everybody's paid money in here.
40 odd years
we've been paying into our pension schemes, do national insurance contributions. Lots of people since they were 15 years old, and we've got over 40 years contributions to the national insurance scheme.
So there's a extraordinary dovetail between what Les is doing here with the miners scheme and you'll find a relationship there, I presume, that pensions, which we expected and every right to expect, have been.
And you talked in all our working lives, and we just want what we were expecting at the age of 60, and we're still waiting for our
WASPI are not against equalising the pension age. What we are against is the way it's been done. In 1995, they passed the 1995 Pensions Act, which stated that women's pensions would increase to 65, and it was supposed to be a 5-year increase over 10 years with 15 years notice. In 2011, George Osborne decided that he would speed that up because he discovered he could save £30 billion simply by accelerating the change of pension age and moving it to 66 for men and women. The problem was, nobody told us about the 1995 move. People were not informed. They decided in 2009 they'd better write to people and let them know, and then they stopped because George Osborne wanted to increase it again. I personally got a letter 2 years before I was 60 on my 58th birthday telling me that my pension age had moved from 60 to 65 in 5 months. 2 years notice for a 5.5-year increase.
Do you think it's fair that you should work all your life and then die?
No, I don't think so. Anyway.
So, assuming that anybody who's watching this and enjoying what you're saying and saying get on with it, Steve, what can, apart from buying a badge for £1, what can people do to help WASPI? Basically to move along the entire pensions debate, which is why we're here today, into a better place, a fairer place.
WASPI have their own Facebook page. They also have a website for people that don't do Facebook. They have a Twitter account as well. You can access the website from anywhere, and you can look on there to see exactly what you can do. At the moment, we are undertaking a mass complaint system to DWP, complaining principally about the lack of notice. And there are certain steps that you have to do this. At the moment, lots of people are waiting for replies from the independent case examiner in Liverpool, where that's the 4th stage, where they are actually saying to them, this isn't good enough, we should have been told years ago that our pensions ages were moving, and no one told us.
Thank you very much for what you've said. There's an election coming up on Thursday.
WASPI are apolitical, they do not support any political party at all. What we were looking for was a statement from the parties about how they were going to deal with this. Everybody knows there was a problem. It's the government, or the past government, that have chosen to ignore it. There's been 6 debates in Parliament, and each time the motion's been defeated.
I have been informed, entertained, you are such a good person. Basically, I'm sure everyone watching wishes you all the luck in the world, and we all wish we could do more for everybody. I know that, and it's such a pleasure to come across somebody who actually does something. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for coming, and good luck.
Good afternoon, welcome to the Central Club at Stainforth. What we're doing here is we're going to encourage you not only to vote for Jeremy Corbyn, because he has put a small piece in the manifesto where for the first time we've got a political party that is going to address the injustices to the mine workers pension scheme, which up to press is over £8 billion has been taken. I can't explain to you, which I will do after these gentlemen, this lady has spoken, how and where that money is. Right, but thank you for coming, and thank the panel here for being prepared to speak to us today. So from me, there's something I would like to say. Yesterday there was a gentleman buried in Staffordshire. His name was Tom Christopher. He was a tenacious, determined character who fought all his life for the rights of the miners. And when I met him, he was well on in years then, but you could see in his eyes, the fire in his eyes and the passion. And I thought to myself, he's a true warrior, him. And you don't see them very often. So I'd like to have a little applause for Tom as soon as he's on. The first speaker I would like up is the Waspy lady. That's your Rose. Do we all know what Waspy is about? No, not many saying much here, are you? Yes. All right, well, I'm pleased somebody over there knows. But we'll let Rosie tell it in her own words. Right, thank you.
My name is Rosemary Jordan, and I am a Waspy woman. Waspy stands for Women Against State Pension Inequality. And put very simply, that means that I was born in the 1950s and have seen 2 rises in my state pension without adequate notice. I'd like to give you all a brief history of what Waspy campaign is fighting for and how and what we've achieved so far. I think if you said to me at the age of 63 I'd be standing here talking to you about one of the most important women's protests in the UK in the 21st century, I'd have said you were mad. Trouble all started in 1995. With pressure from Europe, the Conservative government was forced to announce plans to increase the pension age for men and women. The proposed timetable was okay, it wasn't too bad. It was a pension rise for 5 years that was supposed to take between 10 years to achieve. That doesn't sound too much of a problem, does it? 5-year rise over a 10-year period with 15 years notice. That's okay. The problem was that raising pension ages is always very, very unpopular. So rather than risk this unpopularity, successive governments didn't bother to tell anybody. Instead, they claimed they put adverts in newspapers, in magazines, which, when further investigated, it was found to be the broadsheets in the financial sections. Why were women who were working were expected to have read those papers? Personally, I was at that time holding down a full-time teaching post, raising, or rather running around after 3 teenage children, and running a home, complete with husband and dog. I hadn't got time to sit and read newspapers or magazines. In 2004, the DWP did a survey that showed that not many people, especially women, were aware of their state pension age. But despite knowing this, they still didn't bother to tell us. And They only decided in 2009, 14 years after they passed this legislation, that they better start to tell people. So it carried on, sending letters till 2010, and then it stopped. Wonder why? Well, in 2011, George Osborne, who was the Chancellor at that time, realised there were huge savings to be made through people having a delayed state pension age. And he raised it again for men and women to 66. And he also accelerated the rate of change for women. So they halted the process while the 2011 Act was going through Parliament. And on the WASPI pages, on the Facebook page, because we have a Facebook page, which incidentally has 65,000 followers, we've had thousands of comments from women who received no notification of the intended rise to their state pension age. They managed to write to people about their disability Christmas bonus. They managed to write to people about disability living allowance. But they didn't bother to tell any of the WASPI women. And consequently, we have lost anything up to £48,000 each. £48,000. That's more than people earn in a lifetime sometimes. Remember, it was meant to be a 5-year rise over 10 years. What actually happened was that in the 6-year rise was completed in 4.5 years. 6 years in 4.5 years. It took just over 4.5 years to deprive millions of women of their pensions. Women who were born in 1953 now qualify for their state pension over 4 years, over a 4-year period. Some people have already got it. People who were born in July 1953 will be eligible for their state pension any time now. I had the misfortune to be born in 1954. I've got to wait 2 years and 1 month for mine. So, 2017, with a national campaign, started by just 5 ordinary women affected by this injustice. WASPI campaign has now got over 140 local groups, all around the UK and in France as well, with over 65,000 followers. We've had local days of action, we've had protests at Parliament, we've been interviewed on the television, on radio and for magazines and local papers. WASPI women all over the country have visited their MPs, something probably some of them have never ever done in their lives before. I'm now on first name terms with my MP. I only have to ring up and say, hello Rosie. They tried to persuade them to support the campaign to great effect. In Parliament there's an all-party parliamentary group with over 120 MPs all supporting the campaign from all the different parties. We had an online parliamentary petition which attracted nearly 200,000 signatures. We've had 6 debates in the House of Commons and a debate in the House of Lords. We handed over the largest public petition presented to Parliament in any one day. In terms of both time, it took to get presented 25 minutes, and the number of constituencies it represented, 206 constituencies. 2,500 ladies descended on Westminster in June 2016, and again 7,500 descended in March of this year, on budget day actually, and the government knew we were there. We had pans, we had whistles, we had our voices, and we made a racket. The police said we were the noisiest demonstration they'd had down there for a long time. Crowd Justice page has raised over £100,000 in 3 weeks for the sole purpose of mounting a legal challenge. We have the highly respected law firm Bindmans in London who are acting for us, and at the moment they are organising a mass complaint to the DWP, which will then eventually be taken to the Parliamentary Ombudsman. We are complaining that we were not given notice. We are accusing the DWP of maladministration. We have to keep going. We have to dig in. George Osborne boasted that raising the state pension age was the fastest £500 million he'd saved. And he even, while all that saving hasn't come from the 1950s women, a lot of it has. The one thing that the government will not give us is our pensions. It's too costly. We've got to reach more women. We need them to fight, we need them to be annoyed, we need them to be taking part in all our activities. Far too many women are content to sit there and they'll say, oh, well, what can I do? I can't make any difference. Yes, you can. There are those in the 1950s who were brought up with the phrasing, little girls should be seen and not heard. I can't go see my MP. Yes, you can. Anyone can go. There's those who don't want to be involved. I don't do Facebook. I don't do Twitter. Well, you don't need to. There's a website there which you can access and use. I can't send my letter of complaints to DWP. I don't have a printer. Well, there's email. So, those are the three things that people can do. I just want to finish with a couple of personal stories about people who've contacted WASPI. A lady contacted to say she'd been widowed after 43 years of marriage. She'd phoned the DWP to inform them of her husband's death and to inquire about widow's pension and her own state pension, which was due when she turned 60 in March 2017. She was told on the phone, it's not 2017, it's now 6 years later. And she doesn't have enough national insurance contributions because they've changed the goalpost from 30 years to 35. She never received any notification from the DWP, and this was the first time that she'd ever heard of any changes in the state pension. She was so upset and vulnerable, she couldn't even talk about it. Another lady gave up work. She's a divorcee. She had no other means of income to look after her terminally ill father and mother. Parents are now both dead, so her carer's allowance stopped. She had no income at all. She was told, retrain and find a job. She was put on a job seekers programme, expected to learn how to dress, how to get up in the morning, how to write a CV. She's had to stand out in bitter cold weather handing out leaflets. She's been sent on physically challenging work experience that she couldn't complete. She had no experience of computers, and she was sanctioned for not being able to complete job applications. She'd no computer, no bus pass, and she was expected to get to the library 18 miles away. How was she supposed to get there? Of course, without a bus pass, you have to find money for your fares. She didn't have any. She's been selling her furniture, and more recently she's been sent parcels by WASPI women to help her out. She's not surviving. There are thousands and thousands of women out there who are in very similar circumstances. So for these women, please let's try and do everything we can to enable them to make their voices heard locally and loudly enough to make the government change their minds. At the moment, they are not listening, but they need to. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rosie. It is certainly an injustice, but when you bring a family up, you look after your husband, and you expect a pension, then all of a sudden the carpets pull from under you. It's not right, is it? This is your people that do that sort of thing, you know. No, I'm just mentioning it. But there you go. So when you take power, you're going to have a look at that.
I mean, there's actually a pledge in the Labour manifesto to deal with the injustice of that women in Rose's situation have faced, and to deal with it. So yes.
Thank you very much, Ed. That's very kind of you, that, because they'll not be able to borrow off it. Right.
Straight answer.
Yeah, well, it is. It's straight enough, isn't it? The man's as good as gold. If he says yeah, it's yeah. Man's as good as his word. Right then, The next gentleman I would like to introduce to you is Mick. This is Mick Newton. He's a strike leader from Nottingham. When we were on tour in Nottingham in 1984, yeah, we visited loads of places on tour when we were in Nottingham. Just pleasantries and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But the government used a man called David Hart, who were an MI6 agent, to organise and fund the UDM. He was the advisor to Margaret Thatcher and to McGregor as well. And what they did, they didn't realise there were men, which Mick were only a young lad at the time, he were agitating and organising and keeping men in the NUM, and Mick was one of those in Nottingham that did the full 12 months. So it's a round of applause for that, Mick.
Thank you, Les. And may I also express greetings, fraternal greetings from the East Midlands and in particular from Nottinghamshire. We do have a lot of people that was on strike in Nottinghamshire and are still fighting today to get their jobs back. The jobs are still there. But you'd be surprised just how many people are active in Nottinghamshire. The media doesn't normally report it, obviously. They always concentrate on Yorkshire when it comes to those that stick it out. And in fact, during that strike, the media kept saying that the Notts miners and the Nottinghamshire pits were working as normal. But that was not the case. And I think at one stage we had about 500 men at Thoresby Colliery out on strike. In the end it was 80, and yes, I was young in those days, 20 years of age, and chair of the strike committee at Thoresby Colliery. But I'm not here today to talk about them. I just want to also thank Les, because without Les kick-starting this campaign 2 years ago, our case would still be dead and buried. It's through the awareness that this campaign has created that's now managed to achieve an inclusion in the Labour Party manifesto. And also, at the same time, we do have a paper petition out there that's now got over 35,000 names on that petition. And a heck of a lot of conversations face to face have gone into raising that number on the petition. So I do need to say from the outset that keep your heads up, because we are winning, and it's thanks to Les in kick-starting this campaign that we are winning. As I said, it was dead and buried, but you cannot bury a miner. A miner always finds his way to the surface, and indeed in this case this campaign has found its way to the surface. I want to take you back in time to 1987 when British Coal and the Tory government at the time turned round to the miners and blackmailed them emotionally, and then enforced a clause not to pay any more money into the mine workers pension scheme. As you know, it used to be penny for a penny, and 50% of what we put, 50% of the fund was topped up by the coal board. Ironically, that is the law today. Have you seen the adverts, the workplace pension? It's the law. Well, somebody should try telling them that when they look at our mine workers' pension. £4.7 billion through a pension contribution holiday from 1987 to 1994. And then after that, the gross indecency and deception of taking our surpluses, supposedly on the back of a spurious 50-50 deal. And that wasn't the case. It's 70%, 30%, plus take into account the taxation that we have to pay. So our mine workers' pension scheme became a cash cow for the Treasury. And they must have been looking at our pension during those dark days in the strike and thinking, if only we can get our hands on that pension. It was, I remind you, the second largest pension fund in Europe at the time. second only to BT. That it's not just about the state pension that we should be, and the inequalities in the state pension that need rectifying. It's also about all those occupational pensions that exist out there that the bosses are raiding on a daily basis. £1 million each day from the mine workers pension scheme since 1987. £14 billion black hole for the BT workers. The firefighters, thousands of firefighters out there struggling to get a deal on their pension. The police also have to work 10 years longer. Sorry, I was trying not to laugh. But now have to work 10 years longer to get their full pension. So it's not just about the miners, although we have a very big campaign, and I do believe that there are other campaigns for other occupational pensions that are coming to the fore now, and any government needs to sit, well, we don't expect the Tory government to do it, but a future Labour government needs to sit down and work out legislation that's going to keep workers' pensions secure for the future. Because all we work for, when we put into that pension fund, is A, that it's going to be there at the point of retirement, and B, it's going to be enough to give us security in retirement. That's not happening. I think with the Conservatives, when they looked at our pension, they thought, wow, that's a bloody good pension. They don't deserve it. Why should they be getting all that in their pension? Because we saved for it. That's why we deserve it. But in their ideology, workers shouldn't be comfortable. It's something that sticks in their throat. And the other thing about the mine workers' pension, when they took it into the Treasury, they recognised that we owned a lot of property in the square mile. And some of those financiers were choking on the breakfast at the fact that miners owned, property in the square mile. That was suddenly sold out of our investments, which is another bone of contention. But I just want to go forward a bit into the surplus arrangement, because at the time that agreement was struck, we never had the full disclosure of all the facts. It was a great deceit and a national scandal, and it needs to be brought to the attention of the national media. We have had a lot of media attention throughout the regions, but as one political editor from the BBC said to me, if it wasn't for the fact that you are the miners, that would be all over the news. So the statement about the miners being punished all the way to the grave exists, and that's a deliberate attempt by the Tory government to punish us, penalise us and punish us some more. We wasn't in charge of our own destiny when it came to that agreement back in '94. You're probably aware that there used to be 5 trustees from the coal board, 5 trustees from the NUM, and we used to alternate the chair year in, year out. And what they did in '94 is took one of the trustees' positions away from the NUM and gave it to the UDM, which made the voting 6-4. So every time the coal board, or let's just say the government, wanted to raid our pension funds, the UDM representative voted with the coal board representatives, and that's how they got away with it. And that's still the truth today. We have a trustees election coming up in the East Midlands in 2 years' time, and if the UDM candidate does not win, he will still be installed into that position. So the democratic engagement taking place throughout, with our pensioners is just a complete red herring. So we're stitched up from start to finish. We've been stitched up with our pension agreements, and it's only by getting a Labour government and that Labour government enacting that clause on page 19 of the Labour Party manifesto, that we are going to get any justice. A lot of people are talking about the surpluses and reviewing the surplus arrangement. But for me and for this campaign, it's not just about the surpluses, it's also about that contribution holiday that they took from 1987 to 1994. £4.7 billion that's been taken out of our investments. And I always use this equation. When anybody says, how does it affect pensioners, miners? And I say, well, if you look at what the scheme used to have in terms of about 20 to 27 billion pounds before privatisation, and you look at it now, which is 11 billion pounds, you can see that we're getting less than half of what we save for, what we worked for. So a lot of our pensioners are struggling to this day. I'm glad Les raised the issue, well, informed the meeting that Tom Christopher had died. And I had a lot of respect for Tom Christopher and the hard work that he put into this campaign. But another sad fact is that today, 25 ex-miners and widows will die. Throughout the course of this week, it will be on average about 200. Over the course of the year, it's 9 to 10,000. So they're waiting for us to die off, basically. And the longer they stretch this out, the less they will have to pay out. But think about, and I say this to politicians, think about that we are losing 25 members of our scheme on a daily basis. So when it comes to the urgency of our case, I think that quite clearly makes it so obvious for me that action needs to be taken today. Not kicked into the long grass and we get some kind of resolution in 5 years' time. That's not good enough. It's got to be today, tomorrow, that this case has to be addressed so that a lot of our pensioners, including some widows that are on £10 a week, do not die in poverty. And that's what's taking place. Our members are dying in poverty and we can't allow that to continue. We also need to address that guarantee deal and whether or not it should come under the eyes of the Treasury. To be honest, it's a bit like putting King Herod in charge of Mothercare. How on earth can we trust a government that's reaping the rewards of our investments? We can't. So I would say that we are winning, because our case now, it went to the Treasury Select Committee before they called the election. It's in the Labour Party manifesto, and it's the first time that our mine workers' pension has been in any Labour Party manifesto, so we are winning. And all the people out there that are signing the petition, and they're coming out to the woodwork and they're coming out in the droves to sign our petition, over 35,000, over 5,000 in Nottinghamshire. So yes, we are winning. But I'll leave you with these words from Mick Westwood, who's an active member in our campaign group and is a bit of a poet. But he says they came for our pension and they stole and lied and stole again. The theft is now £8 billion, so a solution must be found. There are two qualities that miners and mining communities have got. One is resistance and the other is persistence. So carry on resisting and carry on persisting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, mate. That was very informative. The figure of 4.7 billion, that was a figure that I calculated 2 years ago. The difference now is the Treasury have agreed that they benefited from the pension payment holiday by 1.36 billion. However, that isn't the end of it, because what we lost from that was the investment returns from that. So what I did is I got the percentages of the investments that we've had for the last 20 years, and I've compounded the interest on the investment returns. It's now in excess of £5.4 billion on the pension holiday, with the figures yet to be audited for 2016 and 2017. So I can see that figure with through the roof. I mean, 5 billion is an eye-watering figure, isn't it? Yeah. But have you got that? No, I think you will have. Neither have we, and we want it back. I just thought I'd mention that. Well, I mean, I lent him a tenner last year. I still haven't got that back neither. But, oh no, it was the year before, wasn't it? You're right. Right. I would like to hand you over now to Eddie. He's our local MP. He's a nice lad and he's just getting used to it, but he's starting to become a regular in here. I've seen him on Facebook in here. You haven't you? Yeah, right. Do you want to go out front there? Yeah. You can walk about a bit so they know who you are.
Well, look, Les, thanks very much. First of all, can I just say thank you to Dean from the Central Club for hosting us here. I think we should give him a round of applause for having us here. And we want to be good for Dean's business, don't we? Secondly, I want to mention Les. What do I say about Les? Look, the first thing I can say about Les is he's a big pain in the arse, and that's really important in a campaigner. Because actually all good campaigners are pains in the arse, because that's how you get results. And just in all seriousness, I think we should acknowledge what Les has done actually, because Les has been so persistent, has been so determined to make sure that this issue doesn't fall off the agenda. So let's hear it for Les Moore, everyone, and what he's been doing. I also want to acknowledge Rose, because you know, Rose, you spoke incredibly eloquently about what you had done in terms of the WASPy campaign, how you didn't expect to be here about the injustice. I know if you didn't expect to be doing this, you know, it's kind of not what you really want to be doing, because you'd rather just have your pension rather than be doing this. But I think it's really good of you to come here. So let's hear it for Rose, everyone, and for what she's done. I also want to mention someone else who's in the audience today who cares so deeply about this community, and that's Ros Jones, the Mayor, who's with us, who was recently re-elected, and she's spending her Saturday afternoon with us. So that's the sort of Oscar ceremony bit out of the way. Let me just say 3 things, because I know others are going to speak. First of all, this is a really appropriate place to be talking about justice for mine workers, because as the banner says, we're very near Hatfield, Maine, the last pit to close in my constituency. And I think it is incredibly important that we honour our obligation to mine workers. And that is the basis of this campaign, and that is the basic demand of justice. And that's why it's so important that Les and others have been campaigning in the way that they have. But it's also why it's so important that the language is there in the Labour Party manifesto for this immediate review of the arrangements. And it's in the manifesto, it's a clear promise, it's going to be kept. If Labour wins the election, I'm going to come on to that. I'm going to come on to that in a bit. If not, when? I learned not to trust the polls in 2015, so if not, when? So it is really important. I also just want to say, though, because it's really important that you tell all your friends this, that there's a huge difference between a Labour government and a Tory government when it comes to mine workers. Because think about what the last Labour government did in terms of investment in coalfield communities, in terms of vibration white finger, in terms of COPD, in terms of all of those things that were passed by the Labour government. Of course it didn't do everything right, and I'm the first person to say that, but it also made a huge difference on all of those issues. Money into the pockets of people in this community. And it's really important in the next few days to get that message across. And that takes me to the wider thing that I just want to say to you, which is it would be incredibly wrong of me not to talk about where we are 5 days before a general election. Because this is an incredibly important general election for all of us and for all of our communities. And we've got on the one hand an agenda both from the Labour Party an agenda from Jeremy Corbyn of making us a more equal society, of investing in education, of investing in healthcare, of renationalising the railways, of building the kind of society we want to see, of investing in communities here, a national investment bank, regional investment banks, all of those things that are going to make a difference to economic development, a £10 living wage. I'm almost going to lose track of all of the things that we're promising in our manifesto. So you've got on the one hand that, the vision of a fairer society, the vision of a more equal society, the vision all of us believe in, and then you've got on the other hand this huge threat from Theresa May. Now, let's be honest, Theresa May has not had a very good election campaign, has she? In fact, you know, the more Theresa May appears on television, the more advantage it is to the Labour Party, as far as I can tell, during this campaign. I would say that she's Thatcher Mark II, but I think that gives her too much sort of strength. She doesn't have that either. But you know, after all said and done, I said this on the radio this morning, after all said and done, what's actually happened, it's really important to understand this, is that Theresa May tried to pretend she's something she's not. She knew that after 7 years, everyone was fed up with Tories, and so she thought, I'll pretend I'm different from David Cameron, because if I say I'm the same as David Cameron, then I'm not going to win the election, and people are going to find me out. So she went on the steps of Downing Street, and she said, oh, you know, I really care about injustice, I really care about inequality, and all of those things. And gradually, throughout this campaign, it's sort of been exposed. The first time she was exposed was on the issue of pensioners. But suddenly she was trying to take the winter fuel allowance away from quite poor pensioners. And people were saying, well, hang on a minute, that's not very good, that's not what you promised. And then she's trying to impose this dementia tax. And then the more you go on, you discover all these other things she's doing, like cutting the tax credits, like going ahead with the benefit cuts, like not changing the issues to do with sickness and disability, like cuts to our schools and all of those things. Privatising the NHS. And if there's one thing that is on the ballot paper at this general election, it's do we even have an NHS after 5 more years of a Tory government? And so there are huge issues on the ballot paper. And on the one hand, you've got this vision of a fairer, more equal society, and on the other hand, you've got this real threat of 5 more years of these people, 5 more years of cuts, 5 more years of privatising the NHS, 5 more. I was talking to a voter the other day and saying, I don't think I'm going to bother to vote. And I said, do you have kids? And he said, yeah, they're 7 and 4. And I said, well, look, you know, if you don't vote, then you are effectively voting for each of your children to have 7% less spent on them in the next 5 years, because that's what the Tories are planning to do. Cutting per pupil spending in our schools by as much as 10%, and there'll be some more in some schools. So anyone who doesn't vote Labour is voting for their kids' education to be cut, and the national health to be cut, and frontline services to be cut. Look, Ros has done a brilliant job in the last 4 years, but Ros has had to make choices she never wanted to make, because Douglas has lost half its money as a result of the Conservative government. So all of those things are on the ballot paper at this election. I don't need to tell you that, I know, because you all know it. But this is the last point I want to make. This is where you come in. What is the lesson of Les and Rose? The lesson of Les and Rose, well, Les is a pain in the arse, we've established that. But the lesson of Les and Rose is that they were not powerless. They were not powerless. They faced these huge obstacles, and they didn't think, oh, well, that's too big a deal, you know, trying to get justice for mine workers or trying to get justice for women pensioners. They didn't think it's too big a deal, the obstacles are too big. They thought we're going to do something about it. And they are an incredible inspiration to us all. And that takes me to all of you who are in this room. But it's great that you're all here in this room now, but it's even better that you're going to cancel everything else you're doing for the next 5 days and work for the election of a Labour government. And I'm really glad that you all, there was a kind of invisible signature you made when you came in the room, that you'd all agreed to do that. And that is a serious point. Because if you want a Labour government, if you want justice for the mine workers, don't rely on someone else to deliver it. Deliver it yourself. And I've got lots of suggestions about what you can do in the next few days. The first thing you can do is make sure people around here vote for me. That would be a start. And I'd be grateful for that. And lots of you are. And you need to do that. Second thing you can go and do, and she'll hopefully be here in a minute, but the reason she's not here is she's out on the streets trying to persuade people to vote for her, is go and work in Don Valley for Caroline Flint, which is what we're doing as well. because we need to elect 3 Labour MPs, Rosie Winton, Caroline Flynn and myself, back in Doncaster. And it's a tough fight, and I tell you what, if you've been to Don Valley, you'll see the Tories putting in all their literature, all of their lies, going through people's letterboxes, talking to a lady about it yesterday, all kinds of made-up things about Jeremy Corbyn, all kinds of made-up things about what a Labour government would do. And the only way to defeat that is to go out and talk to people and say it's wrong and explain the case to people. And you can also go to other seats in the region. I've been in Wakefield and Halifax and other seats where they're also in incredibly tough fights. And the truth is, the reason why we need to do this is because the Tories have the money, right? They've got Linton Crosby and all of that money and all of that glossy stuff that goes through people's doors, but they don't have any people, because nobody really wants to campaign for the Conservative Party unless they're paid to do it. But the difference with us is that actually people want a Labour government, and there are real people who want a Labour government. And that's where you come in, and I really mean this from the bottom of my heart. You know, we don't know about this election. Anyone who tells you they know what the result of this election is going to be is not telling you the truth, because nobody really knows what's going to happen at this election. But the only way that we can actually fight for what we want to see is by us doing it ourselves. And that is the lesson, I think, of today. So, Les, thank you very much for inviting me here. It's been a real privilege to be here. I hope we can elect a Labour government that is going to make good on your campaign. I know that if we do elect a Labour government, you'll carry on being a pain in the arse, which is incredibly important, and make sure that we hold good to the promises that we've made to you. And as I say, you and Rose and all of the people involved in this campaign are an incredible inspiration to us all. And let's take that inspiration in the next 5 days. Let's elect Labour MPs in Doncaster, and let's make sure we also do everything we can to elect a Labour government and Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister. Thank you very much.
A very inspiring speech, weren't it? Yeah? Well, they were mentioning that vibration white finger. I'll just mention it myself as well. The money came out of our pension scheme to pay us for that. That's where that money came from. And our pension scheme was never ever grown to the size it was for community projects, because that should come out of general taxation, and it should never be paid for our injuries. That should come out of our national insurance. But anyway, I just thought I'd mention it. I'm pleased you're on our side anyway, Ed. And I'm pleased we've got Jeremy Corbyn, because he's a different chap altogether, isn't he? He's not your average politician. I mean, you look at him and you think, wow, he's a bit iffy, he's not strong enough. Well, I met him. I met him in a small room. You were there, Peter, weren't you? And I looked him in the eyes, and I spoke to him about our pension scheme, and you know something, I can work with that man. He's a good, straight, honest chap. He's just like Cleggy, or down here. Same beard anyway, yeah, exactly the same. But anyway, yeah, I think we've got to look to Jeremy Corbyn to fulfil that promise that he's given to me, and to you, and to you, and to you. And that is to address our pension scheme, because what they did to it is totally unacceptable. Right, now then, my friend Peter's on it. I always like to hear Peter talk. We were in Wales last week, me and Peter, and they couldn't get him off the stage. You did go on a bit, Pete. But never mind, I know what I do. Right, Peter, we'll let you have a go. Right, could you hands together for Peter? Still
Hello. What an amazing achievement for Les Moore and his campaign group. You know, all that hard work has culminated in the manifesto pledge from Labour, the only political party that has pledged to give justice for miners. Now, this guy, he's a terrific guy. He may always forget his wallet when he comes out, but what a hell of a campaigner he is. Les started off by mentioning Tom Christopher, and isn't it so sad that men like Tom Christopher and Archie Patton, those staunch campaigners, can't be with us right now to see what is happening today, to see that manifesto pledge from Labour. I always remember when I first became involved with this guy here, and I got a telephone call at my office one afternoon from Archie Patton, and he left a message with my secretary, and the message was, please give me a call today if you can, Peter, because I've got some information I think will help the miners' pension campaign. And I phoned him back later that evening, and it was a nurse that answered the telephone. And I was a bit taken aback, and it turned out that Archie was in hospital, and it was very late, and he was resting, and I couldn't speak to him. And a day later, Archie Patton died. And what really struck me about the message he left me that day is that, severely ill, on his deathbed, Archie Patton wasn't thinking about himself, he was thinking about you guys. You know, his fellow miners, his comrades, and what he could do to help you get justice. And isn't that a testament to the bond between miners? You know, just extraordinary. So we've got a manifesto pledge, and we've got work to do, but we've got to win a general election. And once we've won that general election, we've got to ask ourselves, what does justice for miners actually mean, and how are we going to achieve that? And you know, it seems to me that Les Moore and his campaign group, and I hope, Ed, you'll agree, ought to have a seat at the table when that review actually takes place. Because it's Les Moore and his campaign group that are representing grassroots miners. And this is your money. And so you should have a seat at that table. Now, people often ask me, well, what exactly do you think justice for miners should be? And I'm not a pensions lawyer, but anyone that knows me knows I'm always happy to express an opinion on things I know nothing about. And for what it's worth, you know, this is my opinion on it, because I've seen a copy of that 1996 arrangement, or agreement, whatever you want to call it, and in that agreement there is a paragraph which says that the government's own actuaries reckon that over a 25-year period between 1996 and 2021, the government would get 2 billion quid. And, you know, I may not be a pensions expert, but it just seems to me there's very little difference between an estimate of 2 billion quid, this is what we expect to get for underwriting this pension fund, and an insurance premium. And we know on the government's own statistics, they've already had 3.5 billion quid. That's not taking into account the pensions holiday, Mick, that you mentioned, which I think should be thrown on top. But if, you know, if there was an estimate, a premium, if I can call it that, of 2 billion quid, and the government's taken 3.5 billion quid already, then they've been overpaid 1.5 billion quid. You should goddamn get that money back. You paid it with your sweat, with your tears, with your blood. Many of you paid for it with your lives. You all sacrificed your health. So my view is you should get that money back. It should go to the miners and it should go to their families. Then you come on to renegotiating the percentage of surplus between the beneficiaries of the scheme and the government. Well, it seems to me that if this agreement is fixed to run over 25 years, it's got another 4 years to run, shouldn't you get the whole 100%? I mean, I don't know what you think about that, Mick, but if the government's taken 1.5 billion over the 2 billion it was supposed to get, you know, shouldn't you get the whole surplus between now and 2021? Yes. And then from 2021 start renegotiating on what the surplus should be. So this is why I think it's really important that guys like Les Moore, that we know and trust, that have brought you this far, should have a place at the table when that review takes place. Because, you know, this guy is the voice of grassroots miners, and it's your money. Now, people keep saying to me, let me ask you this first, let me have a show of hands on everyone out there that thinks, because we're talking about pensions, everybody out there, put your hands up if you think you actually understand Theresa May's policy on social care for the elderly. Put your hands up if you think you really understand what her policy is on social care. Well, that's really interesting. Well, basically, she wants to shaft you. Sorry?
I think it's genocide.
Yeah, well, you could be right. But let's be clear on what Theresa May's social care policy is. Because I've seen Theresa May this week, and I've seen Boris Johnson this week on the telly telling 12 million pensioners that they're going to be better off under the Tories plan because they'll be able to keep their houses, which they're having to sell at the moment. Well, let's be clear on this. We've got over 12 million pensioners in the UK right now. And out of those 12 million pensioners, there are about 300,000 pensioners who are in residential care accommodation. And those 300,000 pensioners in residential care accommodation risk losing their home. Because if you need residential care accommodation, you're means tested and your home gets taken into account. But if you need care in your own home, then the means test does not take into account your house. So basically, Theresa May is swinging a policy that might benefit 300,000 of 12 million pensioners, but which shafts the other 12 million. And under Theresa May's policy, you're literally looking at having her government steal your house brick by brick. Because the way it will work is, you will get a bill, and that bill may be deferred until you die, and it may be paid out of your estate. But you ask any pensioner, and they will say, all my life savings are tied up in my house. So just imagine how heartbreaking it's going to be. If you're a pensioner, you're in your own home, and you get a bill every month for your social care, and you know that that's reducing the equity in your home, and there's no difference between paying for social care out of your bank account and paying for it out of your house. And the other thing that really strikes me about this policy is this. The only way the working classes have really been able to accumulate any wealth over the last decade or so is through the rise in property prices if you've been lucky enough to own your own home. And why shouldn't we enjoy that rise, just like the establishment? Why shouldn't we? Why should the establishment say to us, oh, well, £100,000 is good enough for you guys. You know, we can't have you getting ideas above your station. So Theresa May's policy on social care is a travesty of justice. But also, look at what else she's doing to pensioners. You know, she wants to ditch the triple lock. She wants to axe winter fuel payments for all but the poorest pensioners, but won't say who the poorest pensioners are. And put that into the context that we've got, well, 1.9 million pensioners in this country living in poverty. 900,000 of them in severe poverty. You know, I saw an article quite recently that really shocked me, and in this article, it was saying that an elderly person actually dies every 7 minutes because of winter cold, because they can't afford to heat their homes properly. An elderly person dies. How can it be right in one of the wealthiest countries in the world that an elderly person is allowed to die because they can't afford to heat their homes properly? It's a goddamn disgrace. And what does Theresa May want to do? She wants to take away the heat from their homes. It's absolutely disgraceful. Yeah, people keep saying to me, even now, oh, well, Pete, you know, this election is all about Brexit, isn't it? This election is not. It's not about Brexit. This election is about child poverty. It's about soaring homelessness, and it's about malnutrition, and it's about whether or not we as a country find that acceptable. It's about 19 million people on the edge of poverty, even though they've all got jobs. And it's about 17 million people that have less than 100 quid in savings. I mean, think about that. 17 million people in this country with 100 quid or less in savings. That's 17 million people just a heartbeat away from being thrown onto the street. You know, this election is about whether or not we find that acceptable. This election is about 1 million people using food banks, 400,000 of them children, you know, kids coming back to school after the holidays, hungry and malnourished. I've got a niece who's teacher training, and she's told me that she has kids, you know, aged 6 and 7, coming into school in the morning. The first thing they say is, have you got anything to eat? You know, and Theresa May wants to take away a meal for infant children. You know, it's just complete and utter madness. You know, this election is about parents actually going sometimes for days without a meal, so their kids have enough to eat. It's about GPs prescribing nutritional drinks to starving patients to keep them alive. That's what this election is all about. It's not about Brexit. It's about the kind of country we want to live in. And you know, guys, I've got to tell you, I think Theresa May has miscalculated very, very badly, because she sits in her ivory tower and she's misunderstood the mood in this country. You know, the people in this country know about the injustice that this government is dishing out on them every goddamn day. And we've reached a tipping point, because people that might previously have put their head in the sand or turned away aren't willing to do that anymore. You know, people are now willing to stand up and say, no, this is not right. We're not, you've gone too far, we're not having that anymore. And that's what this election is all about. So make sure you vote for Ed, make sure you vote for Caroline, and let's goddamn get Labour elected next week. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. I always enjoy listening to you, you know. I enjoy having a pint with you as well, by the way. It's your turn. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, this young man next to me has got to leave us. He's got other commitments, but thank you very much for coming. But we'll just proceed. I'm the one who benefits from this, because coming through that door shortly is going to be Caroline Flint, and she's going to succeed, and she's a lot prettier than you, Pete. Well, long time since I've had a pretty woman sat next to me, but there you go. Right, here we are. This is Caroline. She's the Labour candidate for the next ward in Doncaster. And unfortunately, the problem with building new houses in wards like them, you get an influx of strangers, and they normally think they're Conservatives. And we've always been proud of being a Labour area. And Caroline's got a bit of a job on trying to convince these people. So I'm going to give you a round of applause on my own there for going up against some of them Conservatives, because you can't reason with them, can you? They don't know what's good for them. Anyway, Caroline, there you go. You can have that. Right? And what we'll do is I'll hand it over to you.
I just want you to get the best camera shot of me, if that's all right. Anyway, because I did say artists as I went up the stairs just then, so who knows, I might give you a bit of a turn as well. So thank you, Les, thank you for that introduction. And for those of you who don't know, that I am the Labour candidate for Don Valley. And I do represent everybody without fear or favour, and even in some of our more blue areas, there is a considerable amount of Labour support as well. But you would think, with this general election, that I was actually up against Theresa May rather than this unknown Tory who popped up from Staffordshire, because we have been absolutely inundated with direct mail from the National Conservative headquarters. They have been phoning people up. You might have seen in the Free Press this week that Tory funding has paid for a wraparound advert in the Free Press as well. So we're working very hard, and we should work hard, because Labour should never take our Labour vote for granted. And as long as I've been in the Labour Party, which I joined obviously as a baby in 1979, I was a bit older than that, it's always been my philosophy that you have to go out and earn your vote. Now, I'm very proud that in the last Labour government we accepted that we had to do right from those people who worked in the mining industry. And because of the work and the nature of the work that they faced, they were left with serious illnesses and conditions that led to some of them dying too early, but also led to many of them living lives which were very difficult because of the illnesses that they sustained. And I was very proud that the Labour government did recognise that and set up probably one of the, I think someone once said to me, it was one of the biggest industrial injuries compensation schemes in the world. And many of you will know that having set up that scheme and to put right a wrong, many people, and actually many of their families, because their husbands or dads or granddads had already died, also got some money as well. Now I have to say that scheme wasn't clear cut either, because many of you will know too that unfortunately, and no offence against lawyers, but there are a number of law firms that actually didn't act appropriately and ended up charging their clients for their services, even though all the lawyers' monies were being paid by the government. And I'm sure, like Ed and Rosie Winton and every other MP representing former coalfield community areas, we not only had to battle for our constituents, we also had to battle some law firms locally who also didn't do right by their clients and get their money from them. I'm proud to have been part of that. Now we also know today part of what we're discussing too is pensions, and it's lovely to have someone from Waspy Women here. I've been involved in your campaign for the last few years, and obviously constituents coming to me about that. I think what really unites some of the concerns about the miners' pension scheme, but also the Waspy Women, and also thinking about the future and how we fund social care, is how we can recognise those people who make policy in Whitehall and elsewhere, that we have to come up with schemes that aren't about next year or the next 10 years, but actually recognises the changes in the future as well. And I think the public get that. But at the same time, whether you're a Waspy woman or you're a former miner, you also don't want to be taken for granted. So you don't want to be a Waspy woman who is told one thing about when she's going to get a pension, and then be told within a few years that that's all changed. And I'm sorry, love, but actually you're not going to get your pension for another 18 months or another 2 years. And especially those women who I have met who rely just on one pension, because when they were working there was nothing else on offer for them. And myself and other Labour MPs, and to be fair, some other MPs from other parties, have raised our concern and supported the Waspy Women throughout the last Parliament and before, and there's still a job to be done there. And on the miners' pension scheme, you know, I don't have to tell you, when that scheme was taken over and the government of the day decided, if you like, to take the risk and underwrite it, there were heavy negotiations that went on at that time, and we all recognised that the most important thing for people was to secure their pension for the future. And I suppose at that time there was so much going on with obviously the coal mines closing and everything else happening, that first and foremost miners and their families just wanted to be certain that they were going to get a pension as a result of their labours and their work. Now governments have said, well, we undertook the risk and we know there are these surpluses, but actually that was part of the trade-off, that anything made over would just come into the government coffers. But I know through the work of Les and others working on this campaign that actually all these, almost decades later, isn't it, Les? It does seem fair that we just take stock of what has changed in those 20, 30 years now that has happened. And we know that actually the surpluses have gone into the scheme have been very healthy. But actually what hasn't been guaranteed, either through the scheme and government or the trustees, is making sure that there are reasonable increases where they could happen, but also to look out for some miners who are really in a bad situation compared to some of their other comrades that they serve with down the pit. That's why in the last Parliament, as I sit on the Public Accounts Committee, and also I have to say, I have to think of my, I suppose, Charlie Elphick, who is a Tory MP. You might have mentioned him today, Les.
Yeah, he's a good lad.
Sometimes you can work cross-party on things. We have asked the Public Accounts Committee to look into this without fear or favour, but also the National Audit Office, to see if there is actually something that could be done for the future. Now, sadly, that work was curtailed by Theresa May calling this general election, but there will be a new Parliament, there will be a new Public Accounts Committee, and hopefully I might be on that as well, and the NAO is still there, And as Ed has probably said before, there is a manifesto commitment from the Labour Party to seek that there is a review of this situation, and we look into it and urge the government, whoever that is, to look into it again. So I think these things are important. I think security in our future and how we plan for our future is really important. It is about what we put in, but it's also the certainty that governments give, not just to this generation, but the generations ahead of us and behind us, who actually want that certainty to plan their futures. And I would say, you know, as someone who's a representative of the junior doctors here, probably one of my top priorities is social care as well. I think more than anything else, that's one of those areas that isn't just something that causes insecurity and fear for those older people currently needing social care, but I also know it causes huge amount of concern for their families behind them, not only in terms of caring for their older relatives, but thinking about their future too and how it's going to be paid for. That's why, to be honest, in the last 2 years, I've supported a cross-party approach to try and tackle the problem of social care, and I'm really pleased that the Labour Party, in the manifesto, it's been recognised that somehow we've got to get above sometimes the party politics and come together to sort these problems out, because it's in the national interest. It's in all our interests to stop the stone throwing and just get on and find a scheme that works for everyone, and everyone can plan their futures with some peace of mind. So thank you for having me here today. It's lovely and sunny. If you fancy coming out in the Don Valley and doing any work with me over the next few days to win in Don Valley, you'd be very, very, very welcome. But thank you for everything you do, and good luck to you all. And I'm here, and hopefully I'll be here after June the 8th as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caroline. I'd like to say this about Caroline. She's got a tough job on with the new people that have moved into her area in the new houses. But Caroline was when a lot of MPs turned their back on us, she was so kind to us. She was the MP who took our case to the Public Accounts Committee, and you need to be thanked for that. Thank you very much. And I hope you get welcome back in, I'll find some more work for you. don't worry about that, there's plenty of that coming up. Right. Although that's all the speakers gone through, I'm not going to let this opportunity go by, because looking about here I was surprised, because we've got Ross Jones here. Ross Jones is the Mayor of Doncaster. Ross, come on. Come on, I've heard you speak before. Come on, give a few words.
Thank you all, and thank you all for the support that you gave me. More importantly, we need to fight and fight together. We need to get 3 MPs back for Doncaster. I'm out there all the time. As many of you can, please come along and help us. And I've been out there working, and I've heard some young ladies go hammer and tongue at 1 or 2 who's actually dared say they're not voting Labour. But more importantly, we are here for our great borough, our great town, and I will work tirelessly for that. I'm the daughter of a miner. That was the pit that my dad first started out in at the age of 14. He left school on Friday, started work on Saturday. I know what it was like. I lived through the miners' strike, and many of my family also. So let's all get behind every one of our MPs now, get out there and make sure we get them in. Because I'll tell you what, we get Tories coming in here, God help us. They've cut us now. We've got 50% less money now than we had in 2010. So if you have 100 quid in your pocket, it's down to 50. You know you can't buy the same with that. And they'll keep hammering us. So let's get out there. Let's get these 3 MPs actually in. And let's make Donny a place that we're all proud of. Thank you for that, and again, thank you for your support.
Thank you very much, Gina. You want to speak? Dear me. I've never known you not speak. Yeah, come in. I'll read this. We're going to have a question and answer thing in a minute, alright, but don't go forever.
I have to prove real light, he's my brother. Right. Obviously I'm from Stainforth, born and bred here. My grandfather was an Irish immigrant who came here to work on sinking Hatfield Main pit. The pits here were full of immigrants. There were several different languages spoken down the pit, Hatfield Main, and every pit across this country. We've got one of the most extreme right-wing governments that thrives on stirring up divide and hatred in this country. They own the media, they put the filth in the media. We've had, we thought Theresa May were coming to Doncaster yesterday, so some of us went to visit her.
She took it down. You frightened her.
Well, we were waiting for her. I was outraged at the thought of a Tory coming to Doncaster when they've decimated Doncaster. We've had 40 years of decimation from these Tories. And Theresa May's manifesto, taking food from children, free dinners from some kids, it's the only meal that some of those children get. We cannot allow that to happen. Freezing our pensioners to death, cold kills. And what we are seeing, the deprivation, the poverty, the malnutrition to families. You know, every child matters. Well, I'm sorry, this is like a class war. Some children seem to matter more than others. If you're working class and you're poor, you must vote Labour. Because if this government gets in again, God help you, we'll all be in the poorhouse. Vote Labour, get on the streets, get on the doors, talk to your friends. If you've got children, you cannot afford not to vote Labour. Some GPs are already charging for private consultations. You are going to be paying private consultations if this Tory gets in. Believe you me, there won't be any discrimination if you've got money or not. If you can't pay, you will die. We are already seeing a rise in the infant mortality rate amongst the lower classes in this country. Our fathers, grandfathers, grandmothers fought for a national health service. We cannot allow the Tories to take it away. We've got to fight for it. We've got to be on those doors. You've got to return a Labour government. And it's down to all of us to fight for what our grandparents gave us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next time, it's great.